have a lot of respect for Eddie as a coach and how he's done things. He's got a very good football team, very athletic team. Really, they think won the last 4 out of 5 or whatever it is, something like that. And he's done a good job bringing that team together. But he's a very personable guy, and I think our bond, if you want to call it that a little bit, I don't know if Ed would call it that, but we're both defensive line coaches.
Awesome.
Brady, you talk about going ones-on-ones. How hard is that to do when you have 5 scholarship offensive linemen right now? And I know you said you were addressing later in the week, but we won't hear from you until Saturday. So do you expect to get anybody
Saturday?
else? Yeah, I know it excites you, right? Do you expect to get anybody back
makes me mad.
on the offensive line?
I think we're trending that way. I think we're progressing.
Mike Griffith.
There are some similarities when you were in Michigan then with the injury and stuff.
Yeah.
Follow up on the quarterback deal. Did McBride do enough where we could call the quarterback situation a competitive situation, and will we see? Is there a possibility of seeing both quarterbacks in the game on Saturday?
I would say this. I think number one, we got a competitive situation at the defensive end position. There's 3 guys there that are pretty good football players, and I think that transcends, and that may not be the right word, but that's the whole team. Especially, and you're right. We don't have a full complement like you'd like to have at some positions, but at the same time, it's got to be competitive. So, we'll let this thing play out. Like I said, we've only had 1 practice. We will practice today, obviously. We're going to practice tomorrow. And at the end of the week, I'm sure that there'll be some communication.
Mike Olson.
Coach, you mentioned the potential healing process that players might have to have. Is there any challenge in getting things to be business as usual throughout this week, or just everything's click normally? I think a couple things that we did. Number one, on Sunday night, I kicked the coaches out of here at 7 o'clock because there's a lot of them who have young kids. And, for something like this, and like it or not, I've been through this situation, and it stinks. And I wanted them to get home to be with their families. And the same thing with the players. We didn't do our normal practice on Monday. And part of that is we had a long team meeting. I met with the 21 club, which is any kid over 21, because I think those guys have been here. They know the experience. They've vested themselves. And so as we have met and as we have gotten through the week, the only thing I can judge is their attention in the meetings, their intensity on the field, and their focus on the field. And I think they've done a really good job at this point.
Danny Parker.
Coach, first of all, you change up how Friday practices are done, less physicality, more of a walkthrough. And also, now that you've been in the Big Ten, Pac-12, how would you compare the SEC to those conferences?
Well, I think they're number one. I think they're all competitive. I believe that. And believe me, I think this is a tremendous conference. I think, you look at the different teams and the established teams, but there's great competition. You all probably know it better than I do, but at the same time, I think there's great competition in the Pac-12. I think, especially those teams up near the top, knocking each other senseless. I think the same thing in the Big Ten, with the teams that traditionally have been at the top. But, I think, and you can talk about, the different leagues. I think there's a lot of great quality football programs in this country.
Jimmy.
Brady, did you like what you saw with Trey Smith moving back and forth at the tackle position, and will that continue?
Well, we'll see. By the end of the week, we'll know if it will continue. I'll answer that part first. But, I talked to Trey a little bit, and I asked him how he liked it. And he said, you know, it's a little more challenging, a little more difficult, but he is 100% into what position or what we need to do with him so we can team win. And so I think, you know, and the other thing, he's kind of a special guy, you know, in a lot of ways. So he handled it well.
Boomer than Vince.
Brady, I know you weren't here at the end of last season, but the last 3 games, defense, sort of the same thing, tumultuous, a lot of injuries on that defensive front. How does this year's team avoid that lag at the end of the schedule after giving up a big night to Missouri last week?
Yeah, and that's a really good, fair question. I think a little bit, it's been kind of the opposite this year from what I understand. I know, you know, the Shy Tuttles and McKenzie's and a lot of those guys were out near the end of the year, and you know, Kyle Phillips is in there playing a 3 and losing Danny O'Brien and all those things, and it's kind of been the opposite this year with the offense. But you know, defensively, we got to play better. We got to coach better. I mean, and that's on us. And I think we truly want to play, and you've heard the words, and they're not shallow, but we want to play complementary football any chance we get, which means we got to take care of the ball. We got to take care of the ball. We got to grind out some first downs, you know, from an offensive standpoint. Okay, and then our special teams got to separate us from our opponent, and so that part of it. And I'll go back to where we practiced and what we did yesterday. I thought the guys understood that. What is the philosophy to win this football game? And then next week there'll be another philosophy.
Vince.
2 things, Coach. One, will there be anything administrative in changing where coaches are located during the game? And then 2, you mentioned Trey Smith. You guys really moved those offensive linemen last week. What do you think about that? How difficult is doing something like that within a game?
Yeah, you know, I think 2 things, and I'll answer the second question first. I think it worked out pretty well for us. When you go back and you look at the tape and do all those things, I think the guys handled it very well. I think Walt did a nice job, and Larry, and I think it was an important part of our game plan. What was your first question?
Any coaches moving press box field?
I think
anything
Larry's
like that?
going to come down. I think Coach Scott's going to come down. Nate Ollie's going to come down because Nate and I have worked together with the defensive line. And, you know, I think there'll be times when I need to maybe not be with those guys on the sideline or handling substitution patterns.
Mike Griffith.
Okay, you're probably surprised you haven't asked this question yet, but will you wear a headset? And secondly,
You know, it's funny. I was just going to tell you, I am going to wear a headset.
okay. And
I swear I was.
this was a big yes. Okay, and as far as the offense goes, is this kind of the Canales and Larry show, and you'll stay in the defensive meeting room since those guys have worked together in South Florida and had that experience?
Well, I think, you know, there's obviously a chemistry through that whole offensive staff, Mike. I think you look at, you know, what Robert Gillespie brings to the table, what Walt Wells brings to the table. I mean, I think KB, I mean, I can, but, you know, obviously Larry's the coordinator. And, you know, I have been in the offensive meetings. I spent probably more time down at the offensive side of the field than I have in my career to some degree. But I think the plan that we have is one that is beneficial for us to be successful.
Last couple, Jesse, Austin, Blake.
Brady, was Larry's move to the sidelines, was that a suggestion from you, or is that something he approached you about and said, hey, I'd like to do this the last couple weeks of the season?
You know, Larry came up and said, you know, Coach, what do you think about me going on the sideline? And I asked him, you know, have you done it before? Do you like controlling the offense that way from the sideline, and he said, yeah, he'd like to. So, you know, I have a lot of trust. I mean, I think Larry Scott's a very good football coach, and I think if it's good for him to some degree, it also will be good for our players.
You're talking about him coming down, who's going up?
I'm not sure who we're going to put up. You know, we got pretty good eyes up there. So that part of it, you know, we haven't gone all the way through. Obviously, excuse me, Walt needs to be on the field. Robert, I believe, needs to be on the field. KB, we may go and put him up, but that's something that we haven't finalized yet. It's a good question.
Possibly Chico?
Possibly, but you know, there's something to the fact that you're really, that position is so special on any football team. And if he needs to be on the sideline to look into those quarterbacks' eyes and make sure that they understand, you know, the technique and fundamental, but maybe they're not doing, I think it's important for him to be where he can be the most beneficial for that kid.
Last question, Blake.
Will you take over calling the defense, or will that continue to be Coach Hugh?
No, Bob will continue, and you know, I will have suggestions, you know, which I've had all year anyway. So I don't think that's much different. But you know, Bob will keep coaching those guys up, and with Charlton and Thig and myself and Ollie, I think he's well equipped.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.